Thank you all for joining. We're going to get started in about a moment. Thank you. Welcome, and thank you for standing by. All participants are in a listen-only mode for the duration of today's conference. Today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the call over to your host, Barbara Hauser from the U.S. Census Bureau. Thank you. Barbara, you may begin. Barbara, you got to start over and unmute.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. And I just want to say this is going to be our second ever virtual job fair for computer science and IT specialists. We are so happy to see that you guys are here and you can engage in many opportunities for these various public service careers that we have. And before we move forward, we want to take a moment to just identify a couple rules of engagement for today. During and after the event, there will be a team of HR professionals that will be able to connect with you and be able to, you can email them at adrm.job.fair@census.gov. And this is actually on each slide as we go through. So just in case you need it, it is written right there on the screen. And if you would like to direct any questions to one of our presenters, there should be some information or a question answer session at the end of the presentation that will allow us for some time to be able to go through some questions and get some answers. However, if you do not feel comfortable doing that, or if you want to just email, again, the email address is listed right on the slides. And now we will turn it over for just a second to the Census Bureau's Associate Director for Research and Methodology, John Elting.
Okay, thanks very much, Barbara. And I will add my welcome that Barbara offered a moment ago to everybody. We are absolutely delighted to have all of you with us online. As of a few minutes ago, we have over 500 persons registered and participating in this event. And we're absolutely delighted to have every single one of you involved with this. After my comments, I'll be turning things back to Barbara in a moment, and she will introduce several presenters who are going to be giving you some really exciting snapshots about some very interesting and challenging work in computer science and information technology that we do at the Census Bureau. We're also going to be hearing some presentations in this 2+ hour period, walking through the steps that you'll be carrying out if you would like to apply for one or more of those positions. And then we'll be following that with some question and answer period at the end. But as Barbara was highlighting a moment ago, if you would prefer just to email your questions in, feel free to do that to the email address that we have at the bottom of the slides that you'll be seeing in the presentation today. But we especially would like to highlight the really exciting presentations that we're hearing here. They give a really nice indication of both the extraordinarily complex, but also the extraordinarily interesting and challenging work that we have in information technology and computer science throughout all of the Bureau, and the huge impact that all of that work has, both on the Census Bureau and on all of our stakeholders and our missions for the American public. With that, I'd like to be sure to thank many people who made this event today possible, especially Rena McNary and Barbara Hauser, as well as others within the Research and Methodology Directorate, many colleagues in the Human Resource Division, as well as colleagues throughout the entire Bureau. With that, we'll turn things over to Barbara Hauser.
Thank you, John. And we are going to start today's presentation, and I'm going to send it over to the Economic Directorate for Submit to start presenting. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Just thumbs up would work.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So I'm Sumit Kaneja. I'm the Division Chief for Economic Applications Division. Next slide, please. All right, so with me, we're going to, that works, this works. So in terms of who Econ is and what our directorate does, there's a quick vision that is, we use innovative methods to address our stakeholder needs in real time. And our mission is to use transparent scientific methods to provide broad and impartial information on the changing US economy for use in public and private sector decision making. So we have over 150 surveys within the Econ Directorate targeting econ studies. And we have, within our directorate, we have multiple divisions. And as you can see from the org chart right at the bottom, these are all our mission supporting divisions, which are Economic Management Division, Economic Wide Statistics Division, Economic Indicators Divisions, Reimbursable Surveys Division, Statistical Methods Division, and the Applications Division. And that I'm the chief of the Applications Division. We basically provide the IT solutions and infrastructure support for the entire Economic Directorate. And as you can see from the top, we have an associate director, and within the associate director, there's an Office of Strategic and Portfolio Management office. All the projects oversight within the Econ Directorate occurs in that office. And right under the associate director, we have the assistant director, who also have some offices related to the ITO, which is the Innovation Technology Office, and the support services, which provides the administrative assistance to the entire Economic Directorate. Next slide, please. All right, so as I provided some insight into the number of surveys the Econ Directorate has, we're just going to break it down by the censuses that we have, which are economic and government census. These happens in the years ending in 2 and 7. So you can see 2022, 2027. This is where we get the most detailed snapshot of the US economy, and it serves as a benchmark for the economic surveys. And then we have the current surveys and programs. These are all the other 140 surveys I talked about, where we provide the quarterly and annual data covering all sort of economic sectors. And then we have indicators. These are basically comprises of 13 different surveys. These happens on a monthly and quarterly basis. And this provides snapshots of how the US economy and industries are doing. And this is, we have a very mature process of releasing this economic data, because it's actually moving markets, in terms of every day at 8:30 and 10 o'clock, we release these data across these 13 different indicators. And then we also provide services to other federal agencies, and that's how we call those surveys as reimbursable service, because we get this the funding from our federal partners. And we have over 20 programs across multiple agencies, including the OMB, the Bureau of Transportation, National Center for Education, we have NIH, we have BLS. So we are conducting surveys for federal partners. And there's something that we started, which is fairly new, which talks about the high frequency data. And just 2 years ago, because of the pandemic, we released a small business pulse survey. And that was actually collecting data on weekly basis, and we were disseminating also every week. So it was really high paced collection and processing and dissemination period. It works the same way as surveys, but in terms of the quality, we have less red tape around the different statistical methods we have to enforce. But other than that, the life cycle of a survey is just accelerated to 30 times more than a regular survey. So this is more about demonstrating rapidly develop and releasing data products in near real time. Next slide, please. So this kind of sums up what I talked about in the previous slide, that we have data going from 5 years to annual surveys to monthly and quarterly surveys, and then getting down to the high frequency data and how they're spread out in terms of the colors as the pyramid is depicted on your right side. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to zoom into my division, which is the Economic Applications Division, as we provide the software development and infrastructure support for the entire Econ Directorate. Our mission is to develop and support applications and systems to meet the Directorate requirements. This is where we provide the platform for conducting a survey, what the data model should look like, how are we receiving the data from we have enterprise level services like Centurion, which actually creates our instrument. But once the respondent goes in and completes the survey, then we collect the data, create the processing platform, and then we have lots of different processing algorithms for imputing, editing that data, and then disseminating that data into a enterprise-wide platform we call SETSI. And we have different publication mediums, like we will provide high charts, we will do some Excel spreadsheets, there will be data sets in SAS, and then most of this data then gets exposed through APIs and then available through data web. So bottom line is we are responsible for developing and supporting software applications to meet Directorate requirements. In terms of our vision, we are more focused on standardized systems and application using shared services. So, our approach is to build to scale, reuse, use microservices, use APIs, make sure you separate out the business logic from the visual side of the house, have a way that we can reuse some of these shared services among different applications and not create silos, but more about creating components that can be utilized across multiple applications. And the values that our mission and our vision supports are the standardization, interoperability, make sure we are providing secure end-to-end connection from the respondent side and also from our processing side, and be transparent, be accountable, be collaborative while we develop. Next slide, please. This is a org chart for my area. As you may know or may not know, a directorate, from a directorate, you get into a division level. Within a division, you have multiple areas. And as you can see from the bottom, from the top, the second row, where I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 supporting areas. And I have, starting off with solution architecture staff. They are responsible for the enterprise development. They build the architectural templates. This area is really setting up the roadmap for the Econ Directorate in terms of the technology footprint. We have been doing a lot of rapid prototyping, getting advanced into the machine learning and data science. We have just put out a data warehouse architecture. We work with the enterprise teams like EDL to make sure that we are setting ourselves up for 5 years from now. And apart from the solution architecture staff, I have a ADC area for collection and reimbursable projects. This is the area which deals with reimbursable surveys. And it's kind of different because the demands and the needs of federal partners, depending upon the collection cycle, is different than what we do for econ specific or census specific surveys. That's the reason why we have a separate area for collection and reimbursable projects. Then we have a standardized application which is used by at least 30 different surveys. We call it STEPS. So that standard systems and process improvement area is dedicated towards that platform. Within that area, we're also focused on the agile process. This is where the tech writers, the solution architecture diagrams, the controls that we have to work with security, all the documentation related to agile development takes place in this area. And then we have census specific current survey programming area and census processing systems area, where we are getting data from multiple agencies like IRS, BLS, and we call it the admin data. And that administrative data is where we collect the samples and sample frames from, and those samples are then selected for the surveys. And the last area in the org chart is the econ IT infrastructure support. So as you know, when we have this wide number of surveys and systems, we do need an area where we can provide the database support. How do we provision your middleware? Basically, the application folks are working on developing applications, but the infrastructure, the DevOps, the security, the testing, all that is provided from the infrastructure support area, which is on your far right. With that, next slide, please. So what type of technical stack and positions that I'm targeting in my division chief area? So in terms of the software development, the direction that we are taking is more Angular, more Vue. These are JavaScript frameworks, mostly web-driven technologies. From the backend side, we are using PHP Laravel framework. Of course, these APIs, you can test them through Swagger, but the web services or the backend is more on the PHP Laravel side. We are also looking for a lot of the backend shell scripting, batch processing through Python. We also have SaaS via instances, which is actually in support with ADRM, where we are trying to take some of our Python wrappers and execute in memory using SaaS via. We also have Java footprint. That's something that goes along with the JavaScript framework direction and the web services direction. And then within the database, because we are heavily on Oracle, we have stored procedures using PLSQL. In terms of what's contained, as in that we have a lot of legacy applications in Oracle Forms, SAS AF, RCP, that we are kind of moving towards the JavaScript, which is the Vue and the Angular side. Then going to the next column, which talks about the data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning domain. As you know, when it comes to data-driven applications, we have positions where they are targeting database design, data normalization, PLSQL development, warehousing of data. How do you tune and optimize the data at rest? How do you secure the data at rest and in flight? And then we are multiple machine learning frameworks that we have just created a standards across, which is the PyTorch, TensorFlow, and then we have some of the artificial intelligence tools and frameworks within SageMaker, Recognition, and Lex. In terms of the infrastructure support, we are also looking for positions to fill the middleware administrator domain, the DevOps administration. In terms of the stacks, we are primarily Linux, but we do have about 20% architecture are supporting Windows Server. That's primarily some of our contained .NET applications are hosted on IIS. And as far as DevOps is concerned, we are using the latest and greatest with Git and Jira as our project management tool, Git as our code repository. And for continuous code promotion, we use Jenkins, and we have code quality checks through SonarQube. In terms of the security domain, we are always looking for pen testers, because all our code pipeline needs to be promoted through different code scan gates, because there's a lot of security controls that you have to satisfy. So we have a dedicated security team which is responsible for doing code quality checks, and we check these codes. We perform these code scans using tools like WebInspect, Burst Suite, and primarily our focus is to make sure that our code is SQL injection prone, right? And more we develop these shared services and frameworks, the lesser the chances are for our security to go in the wrong direction, right? So in terms of software testing, focused on performance testing, test automation, we have recently started getting into the domain of live testing of web emulation and simulating, creating screenshots using like Phantom.js and Selenium, so you can actually see not only that there is a problem, but what a user has experienced from their screen, and then what the underlying error is in our logs, right? So we are really focused on automated testing. Next slide, please. All right, Taylor, I'm going to hand it over to you to discuss positions in your area.
Okay, thank you, Sumit. Start my video up here. Hey, everybody. So just to lead off with kind of a quick description about my team, Sumit did mention a few things, but to add a few more details, I kind of simplified to say we build stuff, we help other people build stuff, and we build big stuff. So that first thing, we build stuff, we're doing a lot of rapid prototyping. So in my division, or in my area, I'm always looking for folks that are able to kind of drive the ship. They're folks that can get in there, they can understand the requirements, they can come up with a solution, they can design the whole thing, because we have to kind of build these contained little solutions, these rapid prototypes. But we also help build stuff. So with that level of expertise, we want to bring everybody along with us. So we're doing a lot of upskilling, we're doing a lot of pair programming and things like that bring the rest of EAD along with us. And then finally, it's that enterprise projects. Whenever it's big, whenever we've got a bunch of moving pieces, we're working across divisions. That's where our team likes to get involved. So we've got a few positions across EAD. So the machine learning specialist is going to be in my team, a DevSecOps lead in the middleware support branch in EIS, a technical manager for one of our survey processing systems and surveys, and then a survey programmer. So if we go into the next slide, we'll talk about the machine learning specialist. So what we're looking for here is this is really our first staff member that does this. We have a footprint in AI and ML right now. Like, for instance, we have this really neat real-time prediction engine that runs during our data collection process. And we can do labeling in a fraction of a second. And it's neat, but we want to do more. We see so many opportunities when we look around and from the whole survey process, from creating a frame to editing to picking out rejects and saying this one shouldn't be good, or for doing imputation, for doing fuzzing data before you release it to prevent disclosure problems, stuff like that. It's everywhere you look, you can see things, and we need people to implement that kind of stuff, and even to suggest what we need. So just kind of going through some of the specific bullets here, that's really number one right there. It's analyze what we've got and then suggest some opportunities for us to improve. And then number two is making it real, actually developing it and extending our footprint that we have now. And 3 and 4, that goes back to what I was saying, what our team does. We really have to document the standards. We have to bring everyone along with us. We have to coach others that want to get into it. I mean, we've got some amazing developers, but they may have not had any experience in that realm. And they see a small feature of their site that they say, well, this would be a lot cooler if it was AI. So we want to enable them to be able to do that. So what we're looking for in the technologies and skills, this is a really broad skill set that we're looking for. So you should be coming into it with the basics, with the math basics, with the theoretical basics. You should be experienced with some of the ML frameworks that allow you to create models and deploy them. And you should also be familiar with some of the hosted offerings in various cloud providers, AWS, Azure, whatever, some of their services that do that stuff. Yeah, okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So this one is in the middleware support branch in EIS. EIS is kind of our, they do everything for us that's kind of, they're our local tech support, so to speak. So all the servers, all the middleware, all the databases, all the CI/CD pipelines, they just hold our hands through that as developers and help us out so much. So I love this team. But they need somebody to lead the DevSecOps initiatives. So in the kind of the dev workflow world, that's the source code support, automated code builds through Jenkins, the deployments through Jenkins, CI/CD pipeline, reviews, coding standards. That's some of the gates Sumit was talking about. We can fire off testing from Jenkins. We can set SonarQube up to flag a certain thing or enforce a certain code standard. So we need somebody to kind of solidify that foundation. And then, yeah, that bleeds over a little bit into bullet point 2 here, which is the security side of things. So we use Web Inspect, we use SonarQube, but we have a bunch of other stuff going on too, and a lot of room for improvement as well. Like we can do automated scannings, we can check SSL cert expirations, we can check server versions for various software, we can do a repository for the open source software we're using, or even JavaScript plugins or whatever it might be. Those are all things that we want to be auditing and baselining and patching. And then finally, number 3 down here, EIS does a ton of monitoring for applications. So we try to let the development teams do development. And then once things go into O&M, we need some way to make sure everything was the way you left it. So that's monitoring that all the servers are up, all the databases are up, that we can do a quick little ping and do a login test and say that took 2 seconds, that's fine. And then maybe we put all this stuff into one screen for the users to be able to, or a project admin to be able to go in and see, and everything's green, good to go. It all checks out. So building that stuff is a part of this role. So the skills here, this is going to be a leadership position. So you will need to have the software development lifecycle mastery. So you kind of will need to know how the Agile process works. You will need to have team leadership skills. But in addition to that, you're also going to need a strong tech background, understanding the life cycle of an HTTP request, for example. I mean, knowing how to, if you're doing security work, you're going to need to know how to look into the headers of a request and say, yep, that cookie is set to be secure and HTTP only, and I know what that means. You should know that kind of stuff. So next slide, please. And we'll talk about the supervisory position for the Census microdata processing branch. So here, these are some of our, this branch has some of our bigger applications that we run. So these might be applications where edits are done, where processing is done, where analytics are run, and things like that. So what we're looking for here is somebody to provide that leadership for those dev teams that do that O&M and daily work. The tech used here is defined by what these programs mostly are right now. So that's going to be C++, Java, pretty heavy in the database, a lot of PLSQL there, and then batch processing. And of course, they're all as well in the process of being migrated over, like Sumit was saying, to web-based frameworks. So TIPSy, for example, that's the T-IPSE you see there, that's going to a web framework. So that's going to have Angular in the front end. And I believe a Java backend for that. Yeah, Spring Boot. Okay, and I think the final slide after this one, before I turn it over to my colleague Nicole, if you can go through. Oh, it just did. Okay, so is in the reimbursable processing branch. So we're looking for a SAS programmer here to work on a particular survey, medical expenditure panel survey. So this is a reimbursable survey, and that means that another agency or organization is paying us to do the survey. A reimbursable survey that is in operation right now, and it has new features, new operations, day-to-day operations, stuff like that that go through this survey. So we're looking for a SAS developer to join us and help on this effort. So tech and skills here, SAS. For the most part. So it'd be really nice as we're moving into SAS Viya to get that parallel processing, to get that in-memory processing and all that stuff, to come in with that experience as well. So with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Nicole.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Thank you. Good afternoon. So this is Mukul Matre. I'm the chief for the Standard Economic Processing Systems branch. What we do here, so I'll call it STEPS for short. So what we do in the STEPS branch is, this is really a processing system, which is, the heart of the system is really SAS language, where we run these SAS programs on a nightly basis that do a bunch of algorithms, right, on SAS datasets. And what the data contains is nothing but micro data coming from a bunch of surveys. Like Sumit mentioned in the beginning, we do have monthly, quarterly, and annual surveys. So we do have, and these are all economic surveys. So we do have that economic data coming in. And our user base is primarily the math stats and the analysts who would like to perform those algorithms, right? So these SaaS programs really do the work, during the night runs. So they can do they can do imputation and estimation, all those kind of things during the night runs. So that's really the processing part of it. But we also have a UI which is done using Java RCP. Um, there's a middle tier which is also enterprise Java, and we have an Oracle database which also stores. So the SAS dataset also is replicated into Oracle dataset for easy access. So that during the daytime, whoever the users basically, they can just log into the UI, and they can do whatever they need to do, right? I mean, they can view, edit, the microdata, that kind of stuff. So it also has like a bunch of other utilities. So that's about the application itself. Um, Let me talk a little bit about the positions now. So let me just, so the first one is the technical manager. So if you're interested in this, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I want you to know that this one, the technical manager, is only open for 2 weeks. It starts today, and it's going to close on June 6th, which means that you have 2 weeks to apply for if you're interested. So something to keep in mind. Um, So let's go to the next slide so I can talk a little bit about these two positions. So this is the technical manager position is a supervisory position. So the ideal candidate would be a seasoned supervisor who knows how to handle staff, apply agile principles, you know, um, at the same time, there should be some technical, technical expertise also. Like I said before, we do have Java, Oracle, PL SQL, and SAS, right? But at the same time, what we are really, our vision is to modernize the systems, right? So what we really need is someone who actually understands software development overall, right? Not just like one technology, but you should actually have an interest in anything that's new, and especially like how to make things better, right? Because currently, even though the system has been around for over a decade, it does have its own limitations, because at that time when it was designed, the technology that we have today, it wasn't all there. So they tried to do what they could at that point, but now there's a lot more options, right? So our goal really for the near future is to be able to modernize the system, and the way we'd like to do it is, try to put it into a web browser, right? And it's not as simple as just, because we have a lot of logic on the UI itself, which is Java RCP. So the ideal candidate would be someone who actually researches and um, uh, jumps into the technology and figures out things to make them better. We could be using Angular or Vue for the UI. The middle tier could be PHP Laravel. It could also be something else, but a knowledge of how the web technologies work would be key for the modernization. Um, any knowledge or experience with Python would be highly desired, not a requirement though. At the same time, you know, software configuration management. That's something that would be also a plus for this position. The ideal candidate would also have really good communication skills, because we do need to liaison a lot with our stakeholders. Um, it's not just in terms of technology, but also like understanding the requirements, right? So that's something that I'm looking for the ideal candidate. Also, oh yeah, one more thing is the security control. So you should understand how the security works, because when we actually try to migrate these applications into a newer technology, we want to make sure that we consider the security also. So having some knowledge of security also would be great. Next slide, please. This position is also a 13, but it's technical, so it's a non-supervisory. And this one is open for a little bit longer. I believe it's July. I don't remember the exact date, but I believe it's somewhere around in the middle of July. So this position is also for web modernization, where the ideal candidate would have web development skills, any knowledge and experience of Angular, PHP, even Java, PL SQL, those languages would be ideal. But in terms of modernization, I'd really like someone to be, aware of how Python works, right? I mean, because like I said before, the real heart of the system is SAS programs, right? And the understanding of logic is enough, just to know the SAS. But at the same time, if we want to modernize stuff, then how do we optimize these things, right? So in order to do that, the knowledge of Python would also be appreciated. Also, like I said, the system has its own limitations, so the ideal candidate would apply analytical skills to see how we can optimize things. Um, that's that's it for this position. I'm gonna turn it over now to my colleague, Doug Hallam. Thanks, everyone.
Hello, how is everyone? I am Doug Hallam. I am the chief of the current retail and wholesale programming branch. We are the branch that puts out the numbers that drive the stock market. And we do the retail numbers, we do the wholesale numbers, we do the services industry numbers. I am looking for somebody who might just be right out of college through somebody that might have 2 or 3 years experience. The positions that I'm looking for, like I say, they're starter positions for the most part. And what you will do is we pretty much program in SAS, which is a software language. We are moving away from that a little bit. And we use the standard economic processing system, which McCool just talked about, for our surveys. We work very, very closely with the analysts and the masstats because we have to provide them with the data and the tables that they have to provide to the public or they use for internal analysis. So on this screen, like I say, the survey programmer, current retail and wholesale programming branch is my position. Also in the area I'm in, it is Nisha Patel is the branch chief of the current constructions indicators programming branch, and they do housing starts, building permits, mobile home sales. And they also are looking for somebody, it could be anybody straight out of college, up to 3 years of experience. We know we might have to train you in what language we might be currently working in. But like I say, we're just interested in people that know logic and a programming language, and I can teach you or we can send you to class to learn SAS. I will be looking for somebody with good communication skills. Like I say, I look for somebody who has thinks logically, has programmed in a higher level language. I started 30 years ago in Fortran and COBOL. I've had to learn other languages as we go along. You're going to learn other languages and other skills at the Bureau. That's one of the nice things about being at the Bureau. You will learn other skills while you're here. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so these are the job descriptions and the technologies. Like I say, the person you're replacing, you would be working on the Advanced Monthly Retail Trade Survey and the Monthly Retail Trade Survey and the Monthly Wholesale Trade Survey. But I need to matrix you over some other surveys. I have 8 surveys under me, and most of them are indicators. So if I need you to work on one of them, I might matrix you. That's what, when Summit was talking, we're trying to standardize. That's what we're doing in my branch. I'm looking for somebody who might know SAS and SAS macros and screen control language. Like I say, I can send you to training if I think you can learn quickly. We use Linux blade machines using Git. Microsoft Excel is how we put out many of our tables. We use a standard economic processing system. Right now, we are moving towards SAS via. I'm interested in visualization because my stakeholders are interested in visualization. Python, we want to speed up the process some. Some of these surveys are huge and we need to speed up the processes. R, because R is the statistical language that is open source. And Tableau, again, that is for visualization. Now, in Nisha's area, the current construction indicators programming branch, they provide design, development, and production support for the construction progress report survey, survey of construction, and M3. I actually worked on the survey of construction 28 years ago, back when it was in Fortran. But again, now they usually use SAS at the moment, but they have some surveys that are in .NET. So if you have .NET experience, that would be helpful and you want to put it on your resume. SQL, survey database, PHP, Laravel, and Oracle. They are moving to a new system and we are moving to a new system. So I'll need somebody that knows about data lake because I don't know that much, and my staff, it's not something we've had. So they were looking for some new technologies, and it hasn't been completely decided which technology we're going in. So, like I say, that will be helpful coming out of college. And that is all I have. I think at this point, Barbara, I'm turning it back to you with the next slide.
Thank you. And now we will start a presentation from Anoop Mathur. Anoop, are you on?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Barbara. Jaya will be presenting for Anoop.
Okay. Jaya, are you available? Okay, please 1 moment so that we can try to get Jaya online. Thank you. Anthony, is there a way that you can get Jaya's mic unmuted? She's having some technical difficulty.
Jaya, I believe
Can you
I
hear me now?
just made you a panelist. Is that you?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, proceed. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I was having some technical difficulties. So I am the Assistant Center Chief of CODS. I will be presenting on behalf of Anup Mathur. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. CODS is a Center for Optimization and Data Science, and we are part of the ADRM, that is Research and Methodology Directorate, and we primarily focus on data science research. Our vision is to advance Census Bureau research goals by applying data science methods to optimize Census Bureau business process and create innovative products. Apart from doing the data science research, CODS is also responsible to provide high performance research computing environments and software tools to support Census Bureau researchers. Within CODS, we have mainly three groups. One is, the first group is software engineering group. Our colleagues in this group develop and maintain key research software. Examples of the software that we provide is time series modeling software platform that is used by financial institutions and government economists worldwide for seasonal adjustment of economic time series data. The second group is data science and optimization research group. In this group, we apply data science and statistical models to improve our data collection processes and also to improve the quality of data we collect. The third group that we have is research computing and data management group. This group helps to expand and enhance our secure research computing platforms, as well as provide application administration and user support. We also curate all the sensitive data that's stored in our research data repositories, and also we provision the data for projects and provide data related user support. So can we go to the next slide, please? So let us start with the group that performs data science and optimization research. As I mentioned before, the staff in this group applies data science and statistical models to improve our data collection processes and improve quality of the data we collect. We enhance research to improve response rates and data quality and reduce cost and respondent burden by applying cutting edge methodologies, adaptive design, and data science techniques. We typically use AI technologies like natural language processing, machine learning, and web scraping. The projects that we are doing right now are survey data monitoring projects, which do data collection using internet, mail method, and in-person data collection as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? So we have one opening in this group. It's a Gs13 opening. So we are looking for a computer scientist who is experienced in creating models of using machine learning techniques. The person will work under the direction of the Assistant Center Chief of Optimization and Data Science. They will work closely with a few data scientists to develop the models, methods, solutions that optimize Census Bureau business processes. The experience that I'm looking for, or we are looking for, is having a thorough knowledge on Python, R, SQL, and then shell scripts. also experience in developing say data science models. We would like if they are familiar with AWS cloud environment. And also we are looking for people who are self-motivated and a team player. Can we go to the next slide, please? The next group that we have is Research Computing and Data Management Group. This group helps to expand and enhance our secure research computing platform, as well as provide application administration and user support, like I mentioned before. Here we manage data from multiple sources, including ingest, evaluation, analysis, creation, and updates by applying data science methods. We also manage a data warehouse. It's a research data warehouse within the Census Bureau. We provision data access to users through this data warehouse. Can we go to the next slide, please? Next slide, please. Yeah, in this area, we have two positions. The previous slide, I'm sorry. I think you went, yeah, one more, the slide, previous slide, please. One slide back. Yeah, thank you. Okay, in the data management area, we are looking for two GS12 positions. I think we are a slide ahead. That's fine. I'll just tell what we are looking for in the data management branch. We have two positions, that is GS12 positions. We are looking for candidates who are self-motivated and team player and have knowledge on writing shell scripts, SAS, Python, and R. The person who will be hired in this position will be responsible for creating complex data sets, transforming, validating, and correcting the data sets as well. They'll also support data scientists in their data engineering and supporting needs that they have. The next openings that we have is in our software engineering branch. Here our colleagues in software engineering branch develop and maintain key research software. They work on projects like I mentioned before, like time series projects, but they apply software engineering standards for developing, re-engineering, and curating code to meet the customer software needs. Can we go to the next slide, please? So for this, we have one opening in this area, which is a Gs13 opening. We are looking for a candidate who is very strong at writing code using Java, developing applications using Java, Tomcat, experience with creating APIs, and strong at creating shell scripts as well. If they're familiar with Python, that would be an advantage. And also, if they're familiar with cloud, especially AWS cloud, it would be an advantage too. We are also looking for someone who is a team player and self-motivated. Next slide. Yeah, I'll hand it over to Kai.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kai Wu, and I'm the Chief of the Data Products Coordination Branch of the American Community Survey Office. We're looking to hire IT specialist that is qualified for the GS 2210 positions. Next slide, please. Our branch is part of the American Community Survey. office in the Decennial Directorate of the U.S. Census Bureau. The American Community Survey, known as ACS, is an annual survey. ACS is the premier source for detailed population and housing information about our nation. Our data provide changes in demographic, social, economic, and housing areas on jobs and occupations, educational attainment, veterans, people's homes, and many other topics. Our data help determine how more than $675 billion in federal and state funds are distributed each year. ACS data help local officials, city planners, community leaders, and entrepreneurs understand their community changes and make informed decisions. Next slide, please. Our branch, the Data Products Coordination Branch, manages activities and coordinates projects related to ACS data products. We are responsible for ACS data products from the initial development, review, and testing, and dissemination through various platforms. Next slide, please. Let's start with the ACS data products development. We provide expertise in ACS data products, annual review and assessment to produce new products, remove old products, and improve existing products. We work with subject matter analysts to develop and update the specification for ACS data products, validate the syntax and format of the specifications, transform specifications to datasets to support the tabulation of ACS data products. Lastly, we create metadata in XML format to disseminate ACS data products in the Census Bureau's enterprise platform. Next slide. Our branch is also responsible for software and application development and maintenance to reflect ACS data product changes. Each year, we analyze our systems and applications for opportunities to increase efficiencies and make data product improvements. For system testing efforts, we conduct annual review and test all softwares and applications to ensure ACS data products quality. Next slide, please. ACS data products are reviewed thoroughly to ensure the accuracy of the data before we disseminate through various platforms. Our data products are disseminated annually via the Census Bureau Enterprise Platform, the FTP site, API, and ACS website. We also provide varieties of data tools on our ACS website to help users with different needs access ACS data. Next slide, please. We're looking for candidates with experiences in any of the following languages: Python, R, SQL, JSON, jQuery, Shell script, PHP, HTML, JavaScript, Bootstrap, CSS, XML, MySQL, Oracle, and SAS, among other skill sets. Thank you. Turn it back to you, Barbara.
Thank you. Our next presenter is going to be Zach Whitman from our SEDSide area of the Bureau.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right, cool. All right, cool. Hi, I'm Zach Whitman. I'm the Chief Data Officer and Program Manager for SEDSI. SEDSI is the enterprise dissemination thing everyone's kind of been mentioning in advance of us. So whenever you see SEDSI, don't worry about the crazy acronym. Basically, all we do is we disseminate the Bureau's data via a number of different platforms. If you go to the next slide, the key things that we build are things that are more tangible. We have this general belief that Census Bureau data is incredibly powerful, but it's sometimes a little abstract to general users. In fact, it's oftentimes not really well understood what kind of data we have, which is a huge disservice because we have a lot of stuff that is really relevant not only to data professionals and people who work with Census Bureau data all the time, but also to the general public. There's a general application to our data, which allows you to make more informed decisions. And our mission at SEDSI is really to empower folks to make more informed decisions. How can we leverage the open data platforms and build something that speaks to people more tangibly? How can you make an informed decision about your move, the school district, the business that you want to open? We have a lot of information that can be really applicable, and it's our mission to make it as applicable to the general public as well as our traditional user base as possible. You go to the next slide. So really, this speaks to how can we empower folks to make their lives better? How can they build their government more efficiently? How can they apply for grants more effectively? How can they open businesses and work on community development? How can they specifically feel that tangible asset makes sense to them? There's a common belief that we have at the Bureau, which is that if we can demonstrate the value of our data products to the general public, people will be more aware of why they would be giving us their data in the first place. That might increase participation. If you just get something in the mail that you have no real connection with, and a Census Bureau saying, please, respond, it would be nice if you thought, oh, the Census Bureau, they have a bunch of stuff that I used last year to open my business. Yeah, I'll fill this out. We believe that there is something there, and we'd like to do everything we can to provide that value proposition back to the users. There's a reason why people, allow for their location data to Google. It's because Google will give you the recommendation that you should get a grilled cheese at this restaurant because you're at that restaurant. There's a value there, or at least there's to me, because the grilled cheese was great. But what can we do to play into that space? Can we deliver value to the users as closely to their lives as possible? Can we go to the next slide? So the history has been that the Census Bureau has had a complicated relationship with dissemination. There are a myriad number of ways in which we have disseminated data and information products generally. Most of the time that comes in the form of somewhere on census.gov. You may have found one or two different data visualizations or applications. You may have worked with our FTP. You may have used prior applications like American Fact Finder, Data Ferret. You may have used a third-party app which pulled in Census Bureau data, manipulated it, made it somehow more usable for that function, and then consumed it. You may not have even known it. Our goal is to simplify this. One, because it's really complicated for users to have to know what application to use to get what specific subset of data they're interested in. But two, it's really hard for a program area to deliver to all these different subsystems. In a perfect world, we would have one single pathway from data coming from the program areas to the dissemination unit. We house it, we store it, we normalize it so that it can be consumed like any other data product, and then we deliver it via a single API structure that can be consumed by a number of different applications, but ultimately providing some visibility for a user to query across all the different data holdings and make the most informed decision about what data product fits their needs most. Can we go to the next slide? So this idea, this alignment is really driven by user feedback. How can we do this while also incorporating as much user feedback as possible, streamlining the program area's experience and maximizing the quality of our data product applications and APIs with the minimal amount of effort required. So we don't want to be constantly spinning up multiple applications because we know that one, that does a disservice for discoverability across the Bureau's data holdings. Two, it makes it confusing for a user to have to know which one to do. But three, we also know that if we focus on that API and that ultimate core function, we can then empower both our own graphical user interface applications as well as third parties to be a little bit smarter, a little bit easier to use, a little bit more stable, and ideally, we could see broader usage of our data. So we have three targets generally. This is a long time, but we've set these targets and we're pretty comfortable with them. But next year, the goal is to have a generic data platform, something that can be handled by any data product in the building. And it would be possible for us to bring data into that system and it would work without any kind of major manipulation. That's step one. Step two is to establish and enforce data standards. This is making sure that all of our data products look and feel similarly. Right now, because we have had such a long history of data dissemination from a number of different stovepiped applications and product services, things can look a little different. It can go as, small into the minutia of what is a table title. Does it look similar to one another, or are there discrepancies between different providers? Data structures are different, metadata structures are different. which makes interoperability really hard, especially for a user who might get comfortable using one specific type of data. They might not be able to use the other types of data because of its structural differences or metadata inconsistencies. And then by 2027, we want to take over all dissemination activities. This is really to those small disposable one-off applications up into other mainline data product dissemination products that you might be familiar with. Can we go to the next slide? So the way in which we're approaching this is that we focus on the API. The API is really the big deal. So Sensai really owns two main products that are publicly discoverable, api.census.gov and data.census.gov. Everything that we're doing in data.census.gov will eventually, the functionality and capability will all be fed through the api.census.gov functions. Now, right now, everything is still kind of status quo, but we're getting ready to release a update to api.census.gov, which incorporates a lot of the functionality that you might be seeing in data.census.gov. The core idea is that we use data.census.gov to dog food against api.census.gov. Any functions and features that we need in data.census.gov, we push into the functionality of api.census.gov. This makes data.census.gov a very thin client, one without any business logic. We try to remove as much business logic as possible. And the idea here is that if you're a third party and you want to build your own version of data.census.gov or some parts of it, we want to make sure that we've offloaded all of the business logic responsibilities into the API. We don't want you to have to worry about manipulating stuff and making it look and feel just the right way. We want to make sure that those data services stand up on their own and they don't need a whole bunch of business logic to make sense of them. Go to the next slide, please. So the roadmap, again, we have a long roadmap. Things tend to be projected out that long, but effectively what we're looking to do in the immediate term is we're coming up on a cloud migration effort. Right now we have been building on-prem for a period of time. Now we're about to make a major shift to the cloud. So there's a lot of really interesting architectural work incorporated with that. We want to re-architect so that we are far more cloud native in this respect. We want to be thinking about cloud first posture rather than having to do basically a lift and shift. And what's key here is that we've made a lot of technical decisions for on-prem. We're going to be moving into a hybrid, and then we'll be moving to a cloud specific layout. So that migration is going to require a lot of work and a lot of interesting work, especially at the architectural level. We need to enforce a strong governance model, make sure things are as consistent as possible to make our developers' lives easier. That includes our metadata standardization. And then we also want to consider how can we broaden out the aperture and make sure that we're incorporating new users that typically don't come to Census to look for data. Can we go to the next slide? So in keeping with this big idea about how we want to move to the cloud and we want to re-architect it to a cloud native design while also providing consistent services throughout via a hybrid model, we're looking for an application architect, someone who can help our solution architect make specific architectural choices and work with the teams to be very technical and being able to identify what different types of applications we're going to need to make this work. We're obviously going to need a lot of cloud experience. We need to go into a lot of different depths, and the solution architect is really interested in different design models for the databases. And through our containerized design, we're thinking about some very fun scale up, scale down type capabilities, both for the public as well as for our internal QA QC process. So think about all the data that needs to come into the system. We need to run that through a battery of tests and make sure that we can scale up. So there's a lot of compute hours that we need to cram into a very short amount of time. We at Sensai look to try to release code as often as possible. Right now we're at a 3-week cadence. We want to bring that way down to deploys per day. So there's a lot of really fun and interesting work in that space. So we'd really encourage you guys to reach out if you're interested in any kind of this application or solution architecture. Next slide. So some skills that we're also looking for, obviously this is a kind of par for the course for that kind of application architect. We are, to give you a little sense of the stack, we generally like to bias towards open source where we can. So from the front end, it's a view-based system, but then down in there we have Tomcat. We're moving into Podman. We do have Java databases in the back. but we are also using or very open to like MySQL, Maria, Postgres. We are also interested in some sort of geospatial work. As you can see from the data.census.gov, we do have a fair bit of geospatial data coming through. We want to increase that quite substantially, so that would be nice to have. Go to the next slide. So this is just a review of the Sensei values. So you can take a snapshot of this and read into it later. You know, we are a team that values creativity and openness. We have been given this really monumental but really interesting mandate. You know, make our data more accessible, make it interesting, tell a story, and combine data sets. You know, being able to pull in multiple data sets from multiple different programs, vintages, and geographies. That's a really big ask, but it's a really specific question that we can answer. So we are looking to push the boundaries as much as possible, both technically as well as through the data. Can we go to the next slide? So some of our goals, how we view our goals. We want to be reliable, open, transparent, be user-driven, be known, set standards. These are all kind of core goals that we have. You know, we can get really specific if you have other questions, but generally this is how we set it up. Go to the next slide. For our release train, so you know, obviously we're a very technical shop. We are currently following safe methodology. We are always looking to customize it and refine it. We're currently undergoing a refinement effort right now to minimize the amount of overhead. One thing we definitely want to always focus on is making sure that our developers feel like they have time to work and they're not just pulled into meetings. So we're constantly looking at ways in which we can make our devs' lives better, more efficient, and keep them happy with working on new, cool tech and get the process out of their way. So while this is just a snapshot of general safe methodology, this has been customized to us, and we're about to further try to lean it out closer to maybe a scrum of scrums, but we're still working on it. Can we go to the next slide, and I'll pass it to Richie. Thanks.
Thanks, Zach. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right, thank you. So, hi, I'm Richie. I'm the Assistant Center Chief for Dissemination Development and Technical Integration. I'm also the Chief Dissemination Architect. So in short, what that really means is pretty much all technical stuff is in our area. So building off what Zach was talking about earlier, check out data.census.gov and api.census.gov/data to get an idea of some of the products that we build. Next slide, please. So our area consists of 3 branches. The development branch, which they essentially build the multiple products. So their roles is building the user interface, building the various service, and also talking about different search strategies. They're also responsible for software approvals and repository, as well as the development process and standard, pretty much everything before acceptance testing. They also include specific policies for code promotion and code approvals. The next branch is integration testing and configuration management. In short, is Devops. So what we're looking for there is not really network administrators, which will fall in the next branch, but they're really true DevOps engineer, helping set up the environment configuration, as well as containerization, code promotion activities, testing strategy, testing framework, coordination, implementation, integration with other services such as Akamai, and with other platforms as needed. And last but not least, we also have the infrastructure and security branch. Their primary role is provide infrastructure support and security coordination. So they will be able to monitor our production server 24/7, as well as coordinate system patching, planning downtime, checking through the runbook to make sure the systems come up. So they're essentially our first responder whenever we see a crisis or some sort of system outages. They are also responsible for account management for multiple teams, as well as the set size software and hardware inventory control. So this pretty much consists of all the technical areas in our group. So next slide, please. So our tech stack, I'm not going to go through every one of them, but as you can see, we try to stay fairly modern in terms of our technology stack. some of the cool things that we do is Elasticsearch. We're always trying to push the envelope of Elastic, as well as Logstash and Kibana for the dashboard. We also are using Vue as our front-end framework. We also use Jenkins for our deployment and GitLab, Jenkins and Maven as part of our deployment, as well as GitLab as part of our repository. And Zach also mentioned Oracle and Tomcat and JavaScript as well earlier. Next slide, please. So what we are looking for in terms of the development branch is we're looking for UI developers who work well in Agile team. They work inside of Vue, but if you don't have Vue experience, that's okay. Well, a CS degree is definitely preferred. We're also looking for search and service developer. What we mean by service developer essentially is API developer, as well as understanding of Elasticsearch, different data modeling, and search optimization. And lastly is the API service subject matter expert. This is going to be our Gs13. We're looking for someone with a lot of experience in Java, as well as information modeling, understanding how information, both request and response, travel through the system, as well as system design and application design. Next slide, please. So for the DevOps branch, we are looking for a DevOps engineer who understands how to truly integrate development as well as production operation. Essentially, I look at them as a bridge between the two areas, trying to be able to deploy faster with better quality. And then we're looking for test engineers to be able to catch the defects before the end user sees them. So we're always looking at ways to improve our process so that we can deploy more and deploy quicker. So being agile definitely is a key for us. Next slide, please. Last but not least, we're looking for a security coordinator within our products branch who understands our application design, as well as coordinate security finding with our OIS, which is our security area. That is not part of this group, but part of the Census Bureau and creation and monitoring of the various reports. So next, I will turn it over to my colleague, Shauna. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I turn it over to Shauna, previous slide, please. These are the links. If you're interested in any of the jobs that we talked about, apply here. And these are the links that are able to link to the different postings that I mentioned earlier, or different descriptions I mentioned earlier. So now I will turn it over to Shauna.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? First, somebody give me a thumbs up.
Yep, we're good.
I'm having video problems, so I apologize. My name is Shauna Orzaczowski, and I am over dissemination operations. And we are basically the content managers of CEDSCI. We take the data from the data providers that are the owners of the data and metadata. They deliver it to our system. We process it and load it and validate it, make sure that it passes all our tests. And then we load it. The data goes into a database. The metadata goes into a database. We put it together, run it through an index that Richie's team has built for us, and we load it up in, and so it's visible in an internal UI. And then eventually we build the process that pushes that data out to the external world. So we are the operational backbone. We are currently interested in entry-level positions, GS7 through 12. And we are interested in both computer science majors and IT specialists. Next slide, please. So I am over 2 branches. Oh, and I apologize. Hold on. Sorry, why working from home has its faults. The one branch that I am over is the processing operations branch, and they are the area, they are a mix of technical and non-technical folks. The non-technical folks are the ones that interface with the data providers, just making sure we understand requirements from them and the basic ability to spec out their information. The technical side of the staff, which is what we're interested in for these postings, help build the programs that when the data providers send us the data, it gets loaded and processed and gets the automated system. We are running a lot of data through our system, so it has to be automated. A lot of our things have to run overnight. We follow whatever a release schedule that we have specific dates, but it's quite frequent. Sometimes it's Tuesday and Thursday, but it's almost always on Thursdays that are available for external release. We currently load into an Oracle database. We do a lot of review using a tool called Toad, but we don't know what the new world will go to with the cloud, so we are looking at any database skills. The data providers deliver the metadata to us in XML. We use Java tools to build the little UI so the data providers can go in and review their data and approve it and send it off to us. We monitor a lot of things because we are constantly in a status of production where we're receiving information from the internal stakeholders, loading it in so they can review it, respond to their needs and their questions. When something fails, we have to validate and work with them on how they either fix it on their side or we discover an issue on our side. So there's a lot of interaction with basically the side of the census that cares about the data, and our side cares about processing it effectively. There is a high amount of testing on our side because when something goes wrong, you have to dig into it and decide, is this a problem in our process, or is this something we need to send back to Richie's development shop and they need to build a new requirement for it? Geography. Data is all about geography. We have a huge geographic database that is delivered to us from geography division, but we also have to understand it and make sure that somebody asked me, why is geography so hard? Actually, a geography person asked me why we make it so hard. It's very important that a data user can get to these small little geographies and there's a clear path to them. We have to work very strictly to make sure that all those paths are identifiable and that every user that wants to get to a specific geography has the means to do it and it's not confusing. Geography is a lot bigger than I ever thought. So understanding geography is a huge help, but just understanding navigation paths and how metadata works is a huge perk in this position. If you'll see at the bottom, there are the postings that you can apply for in this position. I think I have one more slide. The other side of our house as back is the standards and harmonization branch with metadata and data. Because we are putting out so much of it, having standards is very important. How things are found on a site, it's important so the user, if we have a standard model and a standard way of processing things, it's much more easy to identify. It's much more easy when you find a problem to identify the problem. When you switch to a new system, if you have standards in place and everybody acts and looks under the same rules, it's easier to move to that new system. All these things are developed in this branch and documented and ran through the data providers. And these are key in understanding metadata and how it works in a process. That side also does a lot of our geo testing. While I want to be clear that we are not creating geographic inputs. We get them from the geography division, but we have to ask them how we want them. And we have to give them specifications. And understanding geography to write those specifications is very key. So a lot of our process is communicating between different technical areas. So that's why we're looking at very technical people to do this. That's all I have.
Thank you, Shauna. Now we will go to another presentation, and this one is for Philip out of one of our IT areas. Philip, are you there? One moment, please, while we try to track him down. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now. Thank you.
All right, there we go. Thanks. So far, I heard a lot of great presentations today. our area in ADSD, which is our branch is the Data Collection Application Branch, and we're responsible for all the data collection on the internet for the Census Bureau. We're an enterprise solution. So you heard from Sumit earlier and some of the other areas. We work closely with those groups to deliver the data to them after we collect it. We use a system that we've developed in-house. You can go to the next slide. Called Centurion. Developed in-house. It's a Linux-based system. It's got a MySQL backend with a Perl template toolkit, as well as MySQL. It's been around for a long time, and we're in the process of revamping it and coming up with a new enterprise system called DICE. And that's going to allow the survey areas to create their surveys and their content and then pass it to our system. And we'll take that metadata and then render the surveys automatically. So that should cut down on the development time and also give more control to the survey areas for their data. So that's a pretty cool new initiative we're working on. We're working on a lot of new native cloud development, working with serverless approaches in AWS and cloud services and microservices. We're also working on some other special projects to acquire the data directly from companies' own accounting systems versus having them have to go in and enter it again. If they already have it, we're working on ways to work with them to pull it directly, which will cut down on their time and cost. We also do, you can go to the next slide. So as you can see, we support a lot of areas of the Census Bureau. Main customer is Economic Directorate. We also work with the Demographic Directorate, doing surveys for nurses and child health surveys and surveys. We work with ACS. We do their main data collection for them. We've done the 2020 census. We work externally with the Department of Justice and NASA and the Air Force, Department of Defense. You know, you can see the list here. Interesting one at the very bottom is the Kimberley Process. That is a system that is used to track rough diamonds across the globe. So all the different countries go there to enter information about the diamonds and their sources and stuff. So that's kind of like that movie, if you've seen a blood diamond, it kind of helps control those kind of things. So that's a pretty cool project to be involved in. We support about 65 plus surveys every year, and that doesn't include any of the special one-off projects that we do in between. So we do a lot of cool stuff here. If you go to the next slide. This is just talking more about the system and how it works. It allows us to basically be able to create these surveys in the same environment versus having to go through the whole security process every single time. It allows us to rapidly deploy dashboards, file upload, download services. We also capture data about the data that's called paradata. So how long a respondent was on a page, you know, what they clicked, what they did, that data is important to help develop better surveys in the future and to reduce respondent burden. So we gather that data, and then that's usually analyzed by other areas outside the survey area to help create better surveys. You know, there's review screens. We do responsive design so that it works on different devices, mobile, desktop, laptops, iPads, all that. Sometimes we utilize the Bootstrap framework for that and build on top of that. The next slide I'll show you is a bunch of different screenshots from our system and different surveys and how they can appear, just different functionalities and features that we can rapidly deploy. What we're looking for at the Bureau, next slide, we have positions open for 7 to 12 entry level. So we really just want somebody that's self-motivated, prefer a computer scientist major, and, you know, some programming and development experience. I started the Bureau 18 years ago with little to no experience, just an IT degree. And I've worked my way up to being the branch chief, and I've done nothing but data collection. So I've seen several iterations and systems. And, you know, if you're self-motivated to learn and pick up new technologies and teach yourself and take opportunities for training, you can go pretty far. As you've seen from all the different presentations today, there's a lot of opportunities at the Census Bureau. If you don't like what you're working in one area, I'm sure there's another area at the Census that you can transfer over to and get that experience that you want and grow and meet a lot of people and have a lot of impacts for the country with the data we gather. So I think that's really all I have to say. I think I can turn it over now to, I think it's going back to Michael, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, we are now going to turn it over to Jaleesa and Michelle to talk about the actual application process.
Thanks, Barbara. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, jumping into how to apply for positions on USA Jobs. When you're in USA Jobs and you've chosen a vacancy to apply for, make sure you read through the entire job announcement and the entire questionnaire in order to verify eligibility, qualifications, and experience requirements. Next, you'll prepare your application by tailoring your resume to the job that you're applying for. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but once you have customized your resume, you'll attach that with all of your transcripts to the application. If you, for example, if you hold a master's degree, you would also need to attach your bachelor's degree. And if you hold an associate's, you would attach those transcripts as well. If you already work for a federal agency, you'll also need to attach your most recent SF50, preferably from a promotion or a WIGI. And then a cover letter is optional. If you do choose to include a cover letter, we recommend specifying the particular division, branch, or hiring manager that you've heard from here during the presentation today that you're most interested in, so that those hiring managers will have interest or awareness of your specific interest. Next slide, please. Yes. Okay, so how to compose your resume. First, you'll want to highlight your qualifications and then identify the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you've derived from your current and previous positions. Describe your work history. This includes the type of work, how it was carried out, and the outcomes, results, and accomplishments of that work. And additionally, make sure to specify the dates of employment, indicate the type of work schedule if you worked full-time or part-time, if part-time, the number of hours, and the salary you earned at those positions. Unlike with private sector resumes that are typically 1 to 2 pages, it's common for federal resumes to be several pages in length in order to sufficiently capture your experience and qualifications. So keep that in mind when you're developing your resume. Next slide, please. In continuation of how to customize your resume, we stumbled upon how to address the specialized experience statements. In every job announcement on USA Jobs, there's a section titled Specialized Experience. This section is used to rate your qualifications by HR as they relate to the job that you're applying for. The higher the grade level, the more robust and complex those specialized experience statements will likely be. Make sure you read the entire section to fully understand the requirements. Once you've done that, break down the section to create a checklist of items you'll need to address and include throughout your resume. And you'll do that by using the identified keywords in the statement. And if you look at the example here, you'll notice there are 16 items within that specialized experience statement when you break them down. And if you were to apply for that particular position, you would need to address all 16 of those items in your resume. And then to reiterate the importance of comprehensively capturing your experience, I'd say the old adage, less is more in this case, does not apply. Conversely, the opposite is true. So make sure you're providing sufficient detail throughout your resume and don't sell yourself short. Okay, and then with that, I will turn it over to Jaleesa for the next slide.
Alrighty, thanks, Michelle. So I'm going to jump into common mistakes. One of the first common mistake is failure to answer questions correctly. You could potentially self-disqualify yourself for simply incorrectly answering a question. Make sure that you read the questions fully and take your time while choosing your answers. Also, give yourself the credit that you deserve. Another common mistake is failing to submit your transcripts. Please submit all required documentation. Again, you could self-disqualify yourself if you do not submit all of the required documents. The vacancy announcement will indicate which documents will need to be submitted. Other common mistakes are failure to address the specialized experience requirements, as well as failure to use keywords within your resume. The specialized experience requirements are located within the vacancy announcement. Be sure to read the specialized experience requirements thoroughly. Also, be sure to indicate all of the work you have performed. Failure to do so can also potentially self-disqualify yourself. And once again, you want to be sure to always give yourself the credit that you deserve. Next slide, please. So application checklist. So the first thing you want to do is you want to, of course, read the announcement thoroughly, make sure you're eligible to apply, review the duties and requirements, and be sure to submit all of the required documents. Before submitting, review your answers, and if you're satisfied, click submit. After submission, frequently check your USA Jobs account for updates. You can also contact the agency to make sure they have received your documents. You will find the agency contact information at the end of the vacancy announcement. Next slide, please. So next we'll jump into the hiring roadmap. This roadmap will detail the hiring process a little bit more in depth. The first step is applying to the position. Review the position description / announcement summary. So first look at who may apply, review the salary ranges, the open and close dates, the location, the required documents, and the qualifications. Once reviewed, click apply and submit all of your required documents, as well as answer all of the questions provided. Once the announcement closes, our Human Resources Department will thoroughly review each candidate and their qualifications. This process is done monthly. Candidates who meet the qualifications will receive a notification via USA Jobs, as well as candidates who do not meet the qualifications. This is what we call the referral process. If you are referred, you may be contacted and scheduled for an interview. Interviews could take between maybe 2 to 3 weeks. Hiring managers will review resumes with qualified candidates, and if your resume meets the qualifications, the hiring manager will contact you and schedule the interview. Once interviews have been concluded, the hiring manager will make the selection. Our Human Resources Department receives the selection and will proceed to extend a verbal tentative offer. If the candidate accepts, our Human Resources Department will send a tentative offer letter to the candidate, and they'll send the information off to our security department to conduct a background check. A background check consists of submitting fingerprints as well as filling out required documentation. Security will contact the candidate to schedule the fingerprint appointment. This process could take between maybe 6 to 8 weeks, but each case is different. Next, we'll jump into onboarding. Once the candidate has cleared security, our Human Resources Department will contact the candidate to extend a final offer. Once the offer has been accepted, our Human Resources Department will coordinate an entry on duty date, which will also serve as your orientation date. Your final offer letter will be sent to you along with required documentation that you will have to fill out and return. And that's it for the onboarding process. And now I will return it back to Barbara for questions.
Okay, thank you, Jaleesa and Michelle. We are now going to start the question and answer portion of the presentation today, and I will actually turn it over to Violet. And if you can go ahead and go through the question and answers that you've received in the box, or the questions in the box, and we can get somebody online to answer the question. And again, if you want to ask more questions, please feel free. And you can put it in the box here, or you can always, if you don't feel comfortable, you can always email us at the email address on the screen, which is adrm.job.fair@census.gov. Thank you. Violet?
Yes, thank you everyone for attending the event. The first question I have is submit, what are the programming languages that your division work in? If we have someone from Submit's area. Do we have any hiring?
I do believe that Econ had to jump off the call. But they should be listed on the slide deck. When we get the slide deck out to everybody, it should list the different programming languages on the slide. But we can also follow up afterwards, and we can make sure that that question is answered in an email.
Great. Will it help if we have certifications within Oracle and various infrastructure admins? Do we have a hiring manager that can take that question, please? Okay, so any of the questions, attendees, if we are not able to get an answer today, we will definitely provide you a response via email.
And just to take,
This is Zach from SEDSI. We would certainly welcome anyone with certs or quals on, tech specific stuff. So it certainly helps to know that you've got some formal training, but that doesn't preclude you from being qualified. But that's just from SEDSI's perspective. I don't know if Econ feels differently.
right, and just, this is Barbara Hauser, and I was just going to say that if you do have qualifications or certifications, please make sure it is noted, just because it always kind of can help increase your chances, or maybe something that someone forgot on the resume or on these job postings. Maybe they didn't put that specific skill, and if you have it and they are looking for it, they might select you.
Absolutely. The next question, what is the name again? API Henson/Hansen, dot.gov. What does that exactly mean?
So was that like api.census.gov and data.census.gov?
Yes.
So api.census.gov is our publicly facing API infrastructure. So if you need to request data, that's the place that we're kind of focusing our users' transactions on. Data.census.gov is like a UI on top of api.census.gov. So it's like, it's a typical type of like kind of search engine designed to help a user try to dig into the data content that we have. Our data, it has a really complicated information model. So, we're doing a lot of work to try to infer meaning from user query and translate that into census speak. But effectively, the api.census.gov is the kind of the engine that drives the show, and data.census.gov puts a pretty picture around it and lets you kind of work with this stuff graphically.
Okay, great. And it's also in the chat. Thank you, Anthony. And the next question was regarding relocation. I know we had a lot of questions regarding relocation. So once you apply for the position, please be sure to read the announcement to determine if relocation assistance is available. Once you apply for that position, then it's determined then once you're qualified and selected, then you could discuss further with relocation. So depending on the announcement that you apply to. Another question was telework. These positions are not 100% telework. However, depending on the hiring manager and the position that you apply for, you will have the option to telework for certain positions.
And if I can just jump in, SEDSI is very telework focused right now. So if you do have some sort of interest but you're not in the DC metro area, we still want to talk to you.
And also a side note to that, currently the census building at headquarters in Suitland is being remodeled. So many of the staff are still teleworking, even though other agencies might have gone back. So Census Bureau mostly is currently doing mostly all telework for a little bit longer.
Thank you both. The next question is all transcripts. All transcripts mean that if you've attended multiple colleges to obtain your degree, you may have more than one transcript, and you would need to obtain it from the various colleges that or universities that you have attended. So please be sure to upload all your transcripts from every university or college that you have attended. Or if you have more than one page, just be sure to upload all 3 pages to ensure that you're qualified for the education that you currently said that you were qualified for. The next question. The job fair presentation will be provided to all attendees who attended the presentation. And the next question, what software do you use for our test automation? Can one of the hiring managers take that question, please? I apologize. We don't have a hiring manager to answer that question at this time, but we will follow up via email with all questions. Our positions require on-call responsibilities or working on 24/7. Our positions within the Census Bureau, well, unless it's IT, I think we need someone from the hiring manager IT to explain those positions.
Hey, sorry, no one jumped in on the testing thing. So Sensei uses Jest and then JUnit for our Java backend stuff. All kicked off via Jenkins, but like, if there's anything specific about that, let me know. Again, we are always looking for new ideas. So if there's a different framework that you have experience in and you don't have specific experience like with Jest or whatever, we're still interested. We just want to make sure that so you guys know what you're getting yourself into regarding our stack. So sorry for the delay.
Thank you. Our open positions require on-call responsibilities or working 24/7 office. I know this,
Hi, Violet, this is Phil.
yes.
Our area is not requiring that at all.
Okay, thank you.
Ours is
positions.
not like a server maintenance back-end type job, so don't require that. Other areas might, but ours is.
Was the question 24/7 support? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, so when we think about our like production operations crew, we don't think about people like staring at dashboards all day looking for lines. We want to be far more proactive than that. And so while we are trying to achieve high availability, the expectation is not 24/7, at least on Sensei's front.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Another question we have in the queue, do you do React development? Is anyone familiar with that?
Yeah, so data.census.gov, we were like playing with 3 different ideas. Like we're looking at Angular, React, and Vue, but we found that Vue was a little bit better suited for us. React was definitely on the list, but Vue ultimately won the day. But if you have React experience, you can translate a lot of that to Vue.
Yep. And this is John Elting. To go back for Zach to the previous question we had about the 24/7, I think the person who posed that question may have been asking, would they individually be expected to be available on call 24/7? I think that may have been the context in which they were asking the question.
Oh, okay. With
Just
then,
And so Zach may have at least a comment from his particular perspective with his group on that.
Yeah, we definitely don't have expectations that we believe in our people to have a work-life balance. And so the idea that you would have your phone, surgically attached to your hip, not the thing that we're going for, not the culture. We always want to have backups and, boundaries. So no.
Yeah, and to highlight and reinforce what Zach is saying, overall, the Census Bureau is very, very seriously committed in terms of work-life balance, family-friendly environments. It's required under federal law and regulation, but in addition, we very much have embedded that deeply in the culture. We expect people to work really hard in a lot of different ways, but we are also extremely serious about work-life balance.
great. Thank you.
This is Phil again. We also are looking at React. We use TypeScript, Node.js, React, Postgres, SQL for our new initiatives, for our new system. So definitely interested in React.
Thank you. The next question is, do all opening require BS or MS degrees in computer science or just certs? Depending on the position that you apply to, you may be required to have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in computer science. Please refer back to the announcement that you are applying to. Hiring managers, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of these postings have a strict requirement. I will say though, if you don't have formal training, but you have experience, job experience on this stuff, we understand that a lot of people take a lot of different paths to get to where they are. And having a degree doesn't necessarily say that you are more or less capable, especially as a developer. So if you are interested, but you don't feel like you need the qualifications, please reach out to one of us at Sudsci. More than happy to talk to you.
Yeah, and if I again can slightly elaborate on what Zach was saying, he's right on target. And I can also say for the Bureau as a whole, we take very, very seriously professional development for all of our colleagues, both in terms of formal coursework certification they need to take after they've been hired, as well as in many cases, developmental assignments. Specifics vary from one case to the next, but it's something that we have very much embedded in our culture.
Awesome, great. Thank you so much, John. The next question, are you disqualified for any census position because you work for Census as an, I believe they're trying to say as an enumerator? No, you are not disqualified. Just continue to apply for the position based on your experience and your qualifications. So be sure to read the announcement to determine if you qualify for the position. Next question. You have to be a U.S. citizen to apply for the positions within the federal government. Be sure to refer back to usajobs.gov to look at the citizenship requirements. Do we have anyone from CAUS on the phone? For the data management position for CAUS, who are some of the stakeholders that you work with?
This is John Eltsing. It looks like Jay Dominini may needed to roll over, so I'll just comment briefly, but then following up is a good idea as well. CODS in both its current configuration and where it will be developing over the next several months and years has a very wide range of very wide range of both internal and external stakeholders. The internal stakeholders are effectively all of the programs that we have within the Bureau with different levels and types of engagement. In addition, much of the impact that CODS has in the data group that you were referencing ultimately ends up being with many of our external data users, either through the Federal Statistical Research Data Center system or through other channels. And one of the really exciting things about a lot of that work within CODS in the data area is that we are moving very quickly toward having some extremely sophisticated data usage processes and data acquisition processes that those who are working within that group have an opportunity to contribute to in a lot of really interesting ways. And Jay Dominini or colleagues will be able to follow up on more specifics with regard to the core question that we had there.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, if you are an active duty military with top secret clearance pending separation less than 180 days, can you still apply? Yes, you can still apply for the positions if you are currently going on terminal leave for 180 days. During that time, you can still apply for positions. Just be sure to submit your letter stating that you're doing your separation, and you should be able to receive that from someone, one of your military officers.
Yeah, and if I could follow up on one point, this is John Olting again, if I can follow up on one point that was somewhat related to the question that we just had. If you are especially focused on security issues, you may especially want to look at some of the postings that are in the management group, both primary bureau level electronic security officer. He has quite a number of needs in that area, and some of the postings align with that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. For someone who just graduated from grad school and has minimal experience in cybersecurity/IT, what jobs would you recommend that person apply for? I would recommend you apply for the GS7 and 9 grade level positions. Please read the announcement and see which one you qualify for. Be sure to upload your resume and also any certifications that you may have obtained during that training. Next question is, would an engineering degree qualify for a position? Depending on what the position requires and educational level, hiring managers, do we have anyone who would like to comment before?
What kind of engineering?
He or she does not state what type of engineering degree they have.
I would say it probably comes down to other experience you have as well then. Maybe you do it on the side or for other organizations, you do some programming or, I guess it's what you communicate in your resume or how you answer the questions with the experience you have.
Yes.
We had a biology degree. We had a biology degree working for us, but he learned programming on his own and he didn't even use his biology degree. So, and he was one of our best programmers. So it really depends on, the experience they bring to the table outside the degree as well.
Yeah, and that reinforces a really nice point that was made a few minutes ago, that as you are thinking about applying, please be sure to make sure that your responses to questions as well as your resume are aligned in a point-by-point way to be fully responsive to the questions and the qualification statements that we have, So for example, if you didn't happen to have, I'm just echoing what we heard a moment ago, if you had a substantial amount of experience, but did not necessarily have a formal degree in a particular area, be sure to make as clear as you possibly can exactly what that experience was. For example, what type of languages did you use? How much did you write? How much code did you write in that particular area? What were some of the outcomes that you had from that? And that helps to ensure that as we go through the screening process, as we have people looking at your application materials, it's super clear, oh yes, I understand how what this person has done here aligns with what our requirements are for a particular position.
Great, thank you. Next question. Can you give a high-level overview of your ERP environment? And how many landscapes do you have? Do we have a hiring manager who can answer that question, please? Okay.
I'm sorry, it looks like maybe Richie, Sumit, or Zach, would you be able to weigh in on those?
So I assume they're talking about risk management. And so we have risk managers on the program currently managing the programmatic risks. I don't know if that's what they're talking about, but that's my guess. And, I don't know if that is, are they talking about resource planning? If they could type in the chat a little bit more. They said ERP, right?
Yes.
Yeah, if they could give us a little bit more, that would be super helpful.
Yes. Hi, Wayne. Can you please elaborate more? Okay. If that person chimes back in, we will I will let you know, Zach. If not, then I'll follow up in an email with the other responses for the Q&A. The next question, do you need experience in every single language? No, you do not need experience in every single language, but you do need experience in some of the languages that the hiring managers requested via the slides. But be sure, even if you don't have all the experience, you can still apply for the positions. Just note what the experience you currently have. The next question, I'm going through, please bear with me. Okay, so question, is there a technical portion to the interview process, like on-site coding, for example?
So we don't have a formal code bootcamp thing that Google or some other bigs can do. We much more take it down to the person. So we're not going to send you like a battery of quizzes, but we certainly will be asking you very technical questions during the interview process.
Great, thank you. So do you guys participate in SkillBridge?
We do not. I believe that's more of an assessment, technical interview assessment questionnaire. We will have our own technical interview panel with some of the SMEs and different targeting programming languages. So as Zach said, it's going to be more of a, technical interview, which is skill driven. We will ask questions and we'll get an idea of your technical abilities. And we're not targeting any specific programming language. We are targeting your way of thinking, the logic, the pseudocode around a programming language, and your just ability to, understand the data model. So it's going to be more about your thought process more than, and logical thinking more than really getting down to the syntax of a code.
Great. Thank you so much. One person stated, what does machine learning mean?
This is John Elting. I'll say a couple of words, but others may want to weigh in as well. Machine learning is a class of essentially computationally intensive statistical methods that are used in a wide range of applications that are really important for the Census Bureau. To illustrate just a couple of them, in many cases, it is applied to so-called text classification, in which we will have free-form text that we may receive, for example, either from respondent or in some cases from a Census Bureau interviewer, in very large volumes. And as a result of that, we effectively need automated procedures for classifying that text in certain ways. For example, with an interviewer, we need to be able to take what are often relatively brief notes that the interview is either spoken or typed into essentially a management system, for us then to determine, gee, are we seeing a higher level of resistance among prospective respondents in a certain area? Does that help to inform some of our decisions about alternative strategies we may be using to persuade them to participate in the survey? In other cases, text classification can also be used for cases in which we are doing web scraping. We obtain information, for example, about a business, and based on that, we're seeking to classify that business into what type of so-called industrial classification that may belong to. So those are just a couple of examples of how you end up using machine learning.
Thank you so much, John. The next question, do you match the current salary of the applicant? Depending on the position that you apply for, your salary can be matched. However, that's on that depends on each applicant's on their qualifications. The next question, what if we don't have any real world experience other than boot camp training for AWS Cloud? Although you don't have any real world experience or training, be sure to apply for the position. And when you apply for the position, you could apply at the grade Gs7 level, and be sure to include any education or experience you may have. Okay, the next question. Does being a genealogist with experience using the census reports online, in addition to having a master's degree in computer science, help with qualifications for any other positions?
I would say yes. I mean, having
yes.
master's in computer science is definitely helpful. That's what we are targeting.
Yes, we are. Yes, thank you.
Yep. If I could just add a little bit on that. The master's degree in computer science, I think, would be viewed as the primary qualification. The experience with, for example, genealogy or other demographic data is certainly a plus in the following sense. Any technical area that we have, what we find for many of our positions at the Census Bureau, it's really crucial that we have really strong technical skills And we also have a very strong awareness of, and in some ways, a nuanced calibration with what are we then going to be doing with those technical skills. And so if you have background in demographic data, and so you have a pretty nuanced understanding of, for example, what do we have in, as you were referencing there, decennial census records or other data sources, having that and also having the corresponding passion and excitement to say, we can use these tools and it can get us a whole lot more insights into these underlying demographic or other issues. That's much of what we are very much seeking and very much want to foster, either with people coming in with those backgrounds or fostering it by having a variety of experiences that people have with different types of data programs.
Great, thank you. Thank you, John. Okay. Would any of these positions be recommended for someone with an IT support background? Yes. Depending on your experience, be sure to apply because we are seeking applicants in a variety of experience. So be sure to please apply for the position. Please don't let your IT support background stop you from applying. Okay, next questions. Could someone from retail and wholesale programming discuss what kinds of personal projects experience would be most relevant to these positions?
I guess that's me, Doug. So the experience is, have you programmed in a high level language? Because these are basically programming positions. But when I look at the resume, I'm also interested if it's entry level. Did you take economics or statistics in college? Did you take anything that might study the stock market? Because we have to talk to our analysts and understand what they're asking sometimes from our programs, what the output is. So retail and wholesale, like I say, right now we're a SaaS shop, but we are in the process, I think, of moving to SaaS via and Python, and we're open to other languages. So I first want to make sure that you are a good programmer, think logically. And then, like I say, what would help is have you taken some classes in economics or been interested some in the stock market, and you would bring that up in the interview and write it on your resume. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. The next question. Once you get hired for a position, how long does training last?
So I would take
Phil,
that. I would say training is part of your career, but we are depending upon the projects, we have lots of training with whether it's knowledge sharing sessions inside the development team, and then some could be that you are taking courses, online courses through Coursera or Pluralsight. But it's on-job training, getting your hands right on the project, and as soon as you get more training, we're going to give you opportunities to apply that training. But it's an evolving thing, right? It's everlasting when it comes to IT to kind of keep learning and keep getting involved with interesting projects.
Great, thank you. Would any other hiring manager like to chime in? Oh, that's good.
This is Phil. I think Sumit hit it on the head there. We kind of take the same approach. It's always a learning environment, and we also don't just throw you to the wolves right away. We'll start you off slow and make sure you're comfortable with one thing before moving you on to the next. because we want to put you in a position to succeed.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. Next question is, can you disclose how many have you hired from your first virtual job fair?
We do not have that current information on file right now. We will not present that.
Thank you. Okay, as we okay, the next question. As a web developer who took a boot camp and have projects to show experience, would that help or hurt for applying for certain positions?
It would,
Experience.
sorry, from econ perspective, I'm just saying it would certainly help. We do tend to ask questions about if, you want to share any of your websites that you have developed either professionally or personally, whether you just created an HTML page or you did hooked it up with a database backend. Was there any sort of transactions that was done around that web-driven application? So it will certainly help. Again, if you don't have professional experience, I would encourage you to still apply for GS7/GS9 positions. But yes, anything that you can demonstrate your technical ability would be great.
Great, thank you. The next question. I have an information systems technology bachelor's, but never found work due to .com bust. I have years of work experience in little in Oracle database work creating tables that meet the corporate database relationship structure. Would I qualify for anything, especially entry level?
I mean, right. Yeah. And from the econ perspective, we are not looking for only the Oracle database skills, right? We are looking at skill sets where you can use Oracle as one of the technologies where you're able to create or you participate in the database design, you have understanding of data normalization, but it goes hand in hand with the other aspects of application development. So I'm not discouraging you to apply. I would say if you have the knowledge of how you can use databases and able to adapt to other technologies or integrate with other technologies, please apply.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much all for answering the questions.
Okay, if any more questions come up, you can always enter them or email us at the adrm.job.fair@census.gov. And now we will go ahead and move into closing remarks. John Elting, are you available?
Yes, indeed. And I'll keep this relatively brief. We're absolutely delighted, again, that we had so many participants, both for the basic presentations and many continuing through the full Q&A process. We would encourage everybody to apply for the positions that align best with your background, technical skills, as we've been discussing with this. In addition, for Barbara Hauser, if I understand correctly, we're going to have this slide deck available online as well?
Correct.
Okay, and so that can provide several vital pieces of information. One is you may want to go back and look at a particular job where you said, gee, I'd be really interested in that. In addition, the links to click on for applying to each of the specified positions are available within that slide deck as well. So really good resource to have. But also, as Barbara and Violet were sharing a moment ago, being sure that if you have follow-up questions, you look through these materials, think a little bit more about it. Do feel free to send your subsequent emailed questions to the adrm.job.fair@census.gov as well. And with that, we'll say we're great to see everybody participating today, and we will turn things back to Barbara House for wrap up.
Okay, thank you. And as you know, it's been a few hours of lots of information, and you will get the presentations emailed to you. And as you can see, there's a lot of diverse positions available in the computer science and IT realm. And as you heard from different people from around our bureau that are hiring managers, there's a lot of interconnectivity, and we work all together, and we are trying just to make it a better community for everybody and try to make sure that we are doing the due diligence to make sure that we move forward together. And thank you. And I think I will turn it back over to the monitor to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Barbara. So that concludes today's conference. Participating, you may disconnect at this time.
Okay, thanks to everybody. Have a nice